joint school board meeting to order at 6:33. And just to recap for those that just came on, the agenda that was on your packet was the original draft that came to me, but it was revised and returned, and so I emailed out to everyone the one that was actually posted. And then just to complicate matters further, I asked her to repost so that item 8 after actually item 11, it just says superintendent contract, so we can be totally transparent. So that was a repost, but that's the only difference. Does that work for everyone?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Do we have any? I don't see any list of other folks like in public waiting to.
We do not have anybody in public.
Okay, so we can skip over that. I will do a roll call though to establish quorum. Shane Wells, Stephanie.
Here.
Hi. Shirley. I know Shirley's here.
Here.
Okay. Brian,
I'm here.
Jessica.
Here.
Okay, so we've got 4 from Northwood. Christine.
Here.
Kathy. Okay. Susan here. Roz. Hi there.
Muted.
Kelly.
Here.
Okay, great. Hi, Kelly.
Dr. Shavna, you can unmute yourself. We have no public, so the mute and unmute is free.
Okay. Bruce. Abby.
Here.
Misty. Misty called. She can't make it tonight. Erica
Here.
and Carrie. Okay, so Stratford has 3. Nottingham has 4.
I think Stratford has 2.
Yeah, I counted 2.
2, sorry.
That's okay.
So that's 10 of us, and I think Kathy will be dialing in momentarily. So we should be all set. So we were going to start with the approval of minutes. I did receive a phone call from one of the members indicating that they felt that the minutes had some gaps in them. And their request was that we just have the secretary go ahead and listen to that tape and fill in some of the gaps. And we might want to specify the areas. But again, it's up to the board what your thoughts are.
That makes sense.
You're okay with that?
Yep.
Yes. Yes.
So I
Um,
just wanted to mention too, my last name was spelled wrong throughout some of it. So if you want to just make a note of that.
Okay. So we'll make a note about the spelling of Shirley Glennon's name. And I don't know if there are any specific sections that maybe needed to be,
Well, I noticed because I actually watched the video and there was so much missing from the auditor's presentation, which was really good and it was detailed, and we're missing a lot of it. I would say half the information is not included.
okay.
There was some other area that I thought looked like it was, I don't know if anybody else noticed anything else.
I know that on line 74, I had made a note. The definition there that he gave was not what is stated on 75. It was a deficiency or a complication of deficiency that interacted poorly with the financial statements. And I don't remember exactly what he said, but that wasn't it.
So maybe just listening to that whole section would be helpful to clarify that.
Right. I didn't know if anyone else had anything on any lines. He's not hunting around a lot trying to figure out where we thought there were issues. All right. So it's okay with the board to go ahead and take these up in September, and we'll have her give a listen again.
Yep.
Okay. All righty. Okay. So that brings us up to the business administrator's report. Hello, Glenn.
Yes, good evening.
Excuse me, Sue, just for your records, Kathy just joined.
Oh, excellent. Hi, Kathy. Thank you, Erica, for pointing that out.
So in tonight's packet, there is both revenue and expenditures for the end of fiscal year 2020, as well as for the first month of 2021 for the month of July. The revenues, summary of expenditures, full detail of expenditures, as well as the grant reports that we've been reporting, and the cash flow statements as of actual for, I know for, let me just double check what I put in the packet.
Excuse me. I don't know if anybody else is having a hard time hearing Glenn, but I'm having a hard time hearing him. Is anybody else having that problem?
I can't hear him hardly at all.
Yeah.
Okay,
You just move
Oh,
closer,
maybe we'll
closer
all-
to your mic, maybe.
let me try turning up the mic, see if that helps. Does that help? That a little better?
Great, much better.
Okay, sorry for that. So again, so just to recap what you might have missed was that in tonight's packet is the full revenue, summary expenditures, full detail of expenditures for the end of FY 2020 as we have it as of when I printed these last week, as well as for the first month of 2021 being the month of July. Our grant reports again through the end of June, and then cash flow statements through actual of June 30, as well as estimated for 2021. The preschool revenue and expenditures are also included in the packet this evening. Don't know if anybody has questions or we want to go through page by page or how you want to handle and proceed.
Would you maybe just want to start with the fiscal year ending June 30th and see if there are any questions there? Does that work for everyone?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so on page, I believe page 12 is the revenue report for the end of, let me get the page, for the end of June. And again, you know, we're still cleaning up and have a few things to record both on the revenue side and on the expenditure side. Well, more so on the expenditure side for the SAU. Most of the revenue is obviously the appropriations from the districts, but the expenditures, there's still some things hanging out that we're working on getting cleaned up. A couple of purchase orders that are, I think, are outstanding, as well as just a few things that are still hanging out. But for the most part, we're probably 95% complete, I'd say. So on the revenue side, a little bit of excess revenue had come in for the indirect costs, as well as one of the appropriations for Nottingham must have been either the budget amount is under recorded on the sheet, or it was, which is probably what I would guess if I looked into that a little deeper. Then on the expenditure side, we're showing 29,000 of unspent budget as of June 30. Then let's see, on pages 14 through 16 is the full detail of the expenditures through June 30. Any questions on those pages?
So just, so it looks like we'd have a fund balance at this point without any, you know, final journal entries of the 29,000 less the 7,100 in revenue.
Well, actually, it would be added to that on the. Look at this correctly.
I thought that it looked
Yeah,
like.
yeah, correct. You're correct. Right. Yep. So there would be about $6,000.
Okay.
Because the preschool, the bottom line is all preschool. No, it's not. It's grant revenue. Sorry, I'm sorry. Yeah, about $7,000.
So the 71, we were just a little shy on revenue. So that will come out of, if we net those two together, we'll have like 7,000 less than the
About
29.
$22,000.
Okay. All right, does anyone have any questions?
Not on that one, no.
Okay. And then on the preschool,
Preschool starts on page 17.
yep. There's about 23,000 left there.
Correct.
Okay. Anyone have any questions on the financials, revenue and expense, and preschool balance for the period ending June 30th, 2020?
I guess just a comment. I think that normally, once we're firm on that number, Glenn, normally with this preschool balance, we send that money back to the districts in the proportion in which they gave it, turned it in,
Okay.
especially since this is our last year being in the preschool.
The 2020 is the last year of preschool?
No, this is the last year that Stratford's in the preschool.
Okay.
So usually what happens is once we get the financials and we know the firm numbers, then we make the decisions. And historically, the preschool money has gone back to the parties, to the different boards in the same apportionment that they contributed.
Okay.
Is that the board recollects that as the typical pattern?
We absolutely have. Yeah, we always have.
So,
And does that typically happen prior to the audit?
my recollection is that we would get audited numbers. I guess I can go back and
Yeah,
look at,
that would be my assumption, is that
yeah.
Once the SAU is audited, then we'd have the audited final numbers opposed to unaudited numbers. I mean, obviously some things can change after an audit, but I'll certainly do whatever the board tells me to do.
I think that we make the decision to return it, and the exact amount, of course, it's going to depend on the audit. So it's,
Okay. Yep, that sounds good.
Alrighty, and then moving on to the first month of the new year.
Okay. So now we're up to, let's see where we're at. We're at page 21. The revenue starting for July. And we've still got to put our budgeted or our anticipated revenues into Infinite Visions. So we don't see a bunch of minus numbers there. So we will definitely have that by the next meeting.
Maya.
Was that a question?
No, sorry, that's me being unmuted.
Oh, no worries. So then on, oh, hang on. Somebody's coming home. I think we got a couple minutes before they come through the door. So for July, you can see the expenditures as of date and the encumbrances they're showing. You know, the majority of all of that is going to be wages that the Infinite Visions sets and encumbers automatically based off of the system.
Anyone have any questions on the year to date?
I have questions on page 23, starting on 23, and several others throughout.
Okay.
I'm a little bit, I just want to understand this one number, the superintendent's salary, the year to date, the 14,808.45. Could you tell me where that comes from, Glenn, please?
That would be what would be I would say would be expended through July 31st.
So for 1 month's salary for the superintendent? I don't think, I don't think that that's 1 month's salary for the superintendent. That's why I was asking. He was only here 1 month beyond.
That includes settling out the contract, though?
That's what I'm wondering. I don't think that that's been.
Well, okay, so now, one thing about this, we can talk about that in
Non-public, okay.
non-public.
But that number, I don't know if that's that number.
Okay,
I'll find out.
You know what the number is? Do you have the answer?
No, I don't, but I will find out.
Okay, all right, we'll find out about that one. All right. My second question, I'm just curious, the tech coordinator, has the tech coordinator been working throughout the whole time? I know we're paying everybody. I just was wondering if he's been in.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Also, I have a question, salary grant coordinator. No, we have in the general ledger 15,450, so that's what we budgeted for him, correct?
Correct.
But then we're encumbering 19,330, I think that says, or 320, I can't read it. So it's like about a $4,000 difference. I wasn't sure why that was.
I'll have to look into the encumbrance and find out where that's coming from.
Okay. Okay.
And
All right,
also,
so,
see, on that first line, if you take the 132,190 and you divide it by 12, you get 11,000.
right.
But July has 5 weeks in it, so it might be roughly that 5th week.
You think that's what it was?
It could be. I'm
All right. We should
saying.
just check. Okay. That's possible. Okay. All right. So the next page, I'm confused about what, on the second line, Assistant Student Service Director, why we've encumbered the 72,000, because that salary is divided into 2 places. Half is in the preschool budget and half is in the SAU budget. And you can see what was budgeted in the general ledger line, the 40,844, but yet we've encumbered 72 out of the SAU budget. And it shouldn't be.
It's more of a software issue and trying to get our software to be able to properly allocate that individual's salary across several different payment centers, not only the SAU, but preschool, as well as I believe some grants, some grant projects are covering as well. And so that's where this is definitely a line where the encumbrance we know is not correct. And so
Okay.
as the finance or the funding source for this position is, like, Nate, feel free to chime in at any time, is spread across, like I said, several funding sources, and they're tiered and staggered of how they're going to pay. So
So you're working on that. So the other
Yeah,
half,
the
the portion that should be
the
in the preschool should be
the expenditure side is correct. The encumbrance I know is not correct, and I honestly don't know if we're going to be able to get it correct in the software to report correctly on the report.
It just affects the bottom line. Okay,
Well,
so I'm sorry.
So I was trying to chime in to help. Glennie asked me to. It will eventually balance out. What winds up happening is, because we have the preschool coordinator, assistant director salary balanced out through 5 different grants, all of our old 18-19 allocations to Northwood and Nottingham, as well as your Northwood and Nottingham preschool allocations for this year, and your Nottingham allocation that they got just a separate preschool allocation in 1920. Other than anyone else, what we had done was, as if everyone remembers, in order to make it so that Northwood and Nottingham didn't have a huge spike, we took a portion of that salary out and put it into your IDA grants. And there was no clean way to do it, so we had to separate it by 5 different grants so that there was no loss in funds, because what we didn't want to do is not spend all of the money. So we separated it out and build the preschool grant portion of the lines to spend them all the way down so that there's no waste. And what winds up happening is that makes it very hard for, as I learned afterwards, Mr. Waring made me painfully aware of how much work I was causing the business department by doing that, because what they have to do is every time they bill, and I think this is why you're having that larger expenditure over there, is they have to bill the SAU and then they reimburse that SAU through a chart of accounts line, because they can't, they have to pay it first. So that's why it's higher. And then they get to reimburse it, and that will work its way down to be correct. And that's what was explained to me. Because they're
how
always a
do we
month
do it?
behind getting the money from the state.
Okay, how do we do it though? Like say for our alt ed director, I know with his salary, half of it's grant funded and half of it is billed back to the districts. I guess that's not in here, right? We have no other example.
Not like this one. Not
Okay.
this one's very complicated because it was spread so many times. I actually got an email today from the state that said I just needed to change the wording on one portion of. They had already approved it all, but they just wanted me to clarify, because what I had trouble doing was and I talked to Glenn about this, breaking down the FICA at every level and not losing pennies, which will happen if you keep breaking it down at 5 different levels, and there's a 7% here, then there's a 13, and you keep breaking it out, you start losing pennies. You start losing even sometimes dollars trying to break all those out. So on some of the grants, it was only salary. In some of the grants, it was salary and FICA, and they sent it back and said, there's no FICA included in this one. I said, that's because the regular operating budget covers the FICA amount that isn't in the other 2 grants. So they went and looked at the grants with me, and they're like, okay, I see your math. You're all set. We'll go ahead and approve it. But it's that process. And that's why I think you're seeing an overdraw on the SAU one at this point. It will balance out. It's just going to take a little bit of time.
Okay. My next question is the salary of the business manager. We have encumbered 135,000, but we budgeted 92,000.
I can answer that one too.
Mm-hmm.
So you budgeted 92,000 because it was only the salary, but you actually have 135,000 to work with because of the benefits. So that's why. So you won't touch the benefits. You won't touch any of those other things. But in order to make sure that we could maximize the amount of time that we're able to use our interim BA, we did go ahead and put that full allocation in there. Or we encumbered the full amount of what was available through all those lines together to make sure that we could have Mr. Waring available to us as we needed him. We might not need it all, but it needs to be there so we're not shuffling afterwards. That's why. So the other ones aren't encumbered.
What happens if in 6 months we hire a full-time business administrator, then you don't have any of the benefits broken down?
You would have to unencumber the amount in the salary.
I mean,
you'd have to do an adjustment.
Everything would have to be, all the lines affecting that, the FICA and the New Hampshire retirement and the health insurance would all have to be redone, because you said you took all those lines out and put them all together into one lump sum.
We didn't take them out. We just took the total and encumbered the total into that line. We added up all those extra lines.
The benefits from one line up to the other to cover the per diem.
We didn't remove them. We just added them up and encumbered it in the other one, so they won't be spent out of the other line.
Okay. All right.
So instead of encumbering that line, it's always gonna show a big balance. So if for some reason we were able to hire a BA, then at that point we would just start looking at those numbers then.
Well, I guess in our budget that is posted, people would not see that 135, because that would be a problem if we're posting a job for 85,000 and people are seeing we have 135 budgeted.
But we don't have 135 budgeted.
Well, that's what I'm just saying. It's not in our budgeted, our budget that's posted online. You're just doing this for your financial records. That's not really online, so people can look at it. Okay.
That is just so that we can keep track of. So really what it is, in all actuality, it's so that we don't use too much of Glenn or our interim BA. It's really to make sure that if that number's going down towards the end of the school year and it's really small, we need to start like we need to start being aware of that and making sure we're not overutilizing it. Because one of the things that's going to really come into factor is our budget season. As you know, our BA is going to be at his busiest, whoever he or she is going to be at their busiest during the budget season. So we need to account for that. And the only way to account for that is to front load it. And if we don't wind up using it, then it just goes back.
A thought that we could also consider is, instead of encumbering it on that salary line, we could encumber 135,000 into the contracted BA line, as to where we expended for my services or for MRI for FY 2020. So the encumbrance is still the same amount. It's 135,000, which, as Nate explained, is the full salary and benefits for the BA position. Where it's paid for is either going to be in contracted services, or the district or the SAU is going to hire a full-time salaried BA, and so then the funds are still the same. It's just a matter of where we account for the encumbrance and the obligation to pay.
Now, when we first made the motion to hire the interim BA, I thought it was going to be 2 days a week for the remainder of the year, but now we're in a new year. So what are you working now, Glenn? How many days a week are you working now?
I've been contracted for 3 days a week.
So that changed from before. So what I guess my concern is, because the rate is about $90 an hour, 88 plus travel, right? My concern is that what Nate was just talking about, budget season, when we really might need somebody more, right? Should we try to work with the 2 days like we were working? That's what we had agreed to, and then move to 3 when or more when we need it, really, for that when we hit September, October, or November, really. It's just a thought, because we don't want to run out of money.
Okay, Nate, you had a thought?
So the 2 days was only because that's all we could afford. That was not enough. And 3 days is even questionable at times with busyness. I think my fear would be going up into everything that we have to get done up until budget season and through budget season. I think going lean would be really challenging, especially for the management of your business office, because that is what Glenn helps to do. I feel like after the budgeting season, you could probably start tailoring it back down if we need to, but we need to get through it and build up to it, and definitely make sure that there's someone there to supervise the business department. Because if Glenn's not there, we don't have anyone overseeing the business department right now. I just wanted to answer your question, Ms. Henderson.
Fine, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Did we have any other lines of interest?
That it for the 2021 reports?
Is there anything else that anyone had?
Okay. And the next two pages are the grant reports. The first one is for the IDA, the 2018-2019 grant for all districts. Second one is the Northwood and Nottingham IDA and preschool for 2019 through 2021. Any questions on either of those?
And then at some point, Nottingham is separate.
Correct. The Nottingham board receives their grant-specific reports that are separated. Then on page 29 is the first of the cash reports, cash flow statements. So this is the fiscal year ending 2019-2020 as of June 30 actuals. Page 30 again is just a summary of the inflows and outflows for the month of June. the same ending cash balance. And page 31 is a cash flow projection for 2020-2021 school year.
Any other questions on these financials or the grants? Okay then. Are there any other questions for Mr. Waring? Okay, well, thank you for those reports.
I have a quick
Yeah.
question.
Oh, okay, we have one question coming.
I don't know if it's for Mr. Waring or Mr. Byrne, but are we going to continue to fund our assistant student services director with all those 5 different grants, or will that cause, if we go back to budgeting for her for that job, it will cause a spike in our budgets? So are we stuck in that system?
No, what we had discussed before is that we were just using those 5 different grants because they were reallocation funds. There won't be that many grants in the future. There'll be 2, the Northwood and the Nottingham one. But also we talked about slowly increasing it in the local operating budget and slowly removing it from the grants, because we know the grants get smaller as they go. So we don't want to spike it, but we could slowly start doing some shifts as we need to. So it's not going to be as labor intensive for the business office moving forward. I have promised the business office that. I mean, we still have some of these issues that are going to go forward with having 3 different grants primary, or well, I'll say next year, 2 different grants primary for your school psychologist, stuff like that, because you're separating it out each time. Every time you have what used to be 1 activity is now anywhere between 3 and 4 different activities. So they still have to bill. But what I do is I am breaking it down as we're getting, it's going to be easier for them to tell them what ones to hit first. And we've been in communication. Mr. Waring and I have sat down and really looked at the strategy to do that. And they are starting to improve on that function in the programming. It is labor intensive because it is back and forth, but we're hoping to minimize that the best that we can.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Also, I just did want to mention that we will likely have a $4,000 expense coming up. And there are a couple of lines that the board had already looked at, excuse me, for that expense. So we'll be talking about that as we progress. But I just wanted to put that out there.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So are we okay with the financials at this point?
Yes.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Moore, for the reports. It was good information. Thank you for the update on the year-to-date. That's good to have. And if you're fine, if you don't think there's anything else, you're welcome to enjoy the rest of your evening.
I will take advantage of an early evening if you folks don't need me anymore.
Is everyone okay with that?
Yes.
Okay, it's a nice night, so.
Great. Thank you very much.
I miss
Have a great evening.
I'll see you tomorrow.
You bet.
All right, that takes us on to the Student Services Director report.
Yeah, so in my report, it's just our quarterly findings. That's all, or our quarterly child find report as we had done before, and in including the addition that was asked for. So if you look at the bottom, it talks about the total number of referrals as well as the percentage of those referrals that were actually identified. That was something that was asked about, just so that we could keep track of it, and that's really that first page. There, so I say first page, but page 32, that kind of breaks it down for you and shows you the total referrals by the year, because that's July 1 to June 30th, how many were identified and what your percentage is of those identifications. And that was the request that was made, so we wanted to go ahead and honor that so you could kind of try to keep track of trends.
This is great.
Okay.
Good information. Thank you.
Jill, I would say Jill and I worked on it together, but I kind of explained to her what I was looking for, and she crunched the numbers and got it for you. So she did a great job with it, and I'll let her know that you like the report. The second page kind of goes over a little bit more detail of the years, the 3 years, so you could track it, as well as what we were going from there. It's a little harder to give you the percentages there. We will start doing that from this point on, but based on where we were at and knowing some of those numbers fluctuated, it was really hard to go back and get all of that information for you. But this is the 3-year trend that, that was also requested just to kind of see what was going on, and it breaks it down for you so that you can see it in a nice clear picture.
I have a question. So the total number of referrals, though, that's not the first section where we have Northwood 15, then Nottingham 21, and Stratford 12. Those are just referrals, not identified students?
Those are just referrals, not identified students. That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So it showed you that in 17-18, you had a total of 33. In 18-19, you had 43. This year, you had 48. And that's a trend we're seeing across the state as ESS gets more involved. And we are still seeing the effects of some of the opioid crisis that comes through and changing that number. Not all of our referrals come from that, but that still shows that skew, and that's what we're seeing there. And that's why I will imagine it will level out at some point, but you're going to continue to start to see an increase for a little while, I think. And that's a trend that I've seen with my regional directors. And I will tell you that I know that there was some questions about students, and it says down here due to COVID-19 restrictions. So currently in Step by Step, you have 2 students who are enrolled to be typicals that are awaiting their identification or awaiting their evaluation, and that was by parent choice. They did not want to try to do it remotely. They wanted to wait until school is back in session. So you have 2 students there, and you have 1 student who is not enrolled, but still also wants to wait until they can do it in person. They don't want to try to do a remote evaluation with their preschool student. So that takes the 3 from that you currently have in step-by-step waiting. You have 2 that are currently waiting for an evaluation in Stratford. 1 is enrolled as a typical and wants to wait, and the other is not enrolled yet, but the one that we can't move forward with right now because you can't do this evaluation remotely is there's a motor concern, and you can't do motor evaluations remotely. That's the one you just can't do. So they are in agreement that we found them not eligible, but they're awaiting to do a in-person meeting, and that will take place once we're back in session. So that's where we're currently at right now. So that's everything up to date. And that's all for me. I didn't include any.
I have a question, Nate. Yep. Okay, so when I look at Stratford, under speech, well, I see a total 4, and then under academic, I see 4 and 1 deferred. And then speech, I see 4 plus 1 deferred. Then I see OT, 2 and 1 deferred.
We're no longer in June. This was the quarterly. So as of right now, you only have 2. That's why I'm giving you an up-to-date. This was the quarterly that was put together.
Okay, so I guess what Jill explained to us at our preschool meeting, these kids all came in the spring, but we did not evaluate them in the spring because of COVID. So that's why I'm confused. What happened to those kids that weren't evaluated in the spring?
I can only answer what I checked in with her today to verify that I had all the information. You only have 2 pending in Stratford.
Okay.
That's because I wanted to verify to make sure that there were what the changes were since this report, because this was the quarterly, and the quarterly ends in June. So I did double check, and that's why I wanted to give you the separate facts because it is different than the report. But at that time, that was up to date. So right now you have 2 pending. I can try to get some better clarification for you from Jill if there's something I'm missing. but I'm pretty confident in what I've given to you tonight on the 2 that you have pending. I can try to have her give a summary to you on what changed, if you would like.
I think that's okay, because I think we have to meet with Joe anyway for
You
a
do. You have
preschool
a.
meeting. That's
You
okay.
do. You have
Yeah.
a PLC coming up.
Yeah, right. So we're fine. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
I have a question, and I think I'm just not understanding something, so please don't laugh at me if this is an obvious answer, because I'm a little embarrassed to ask. But I looked at all the numbers, and I see that there are evals and referrals, but I'm not sure how I glean actual enrollment from that, or if I can, or if it's here and I'm just missing it. And so I apologize, but I don't understand. I'm not understanding that.
This does not necessarily. These are just your referrals. Your enrollment is not this.
Oh, okay.
This is just your referral stuff, because your enrollment can change at any point. These
Okay.
are just your referrals, because that was the question of how many referrals are we getting on a regular basis. So we only showed you the referrals. What we do typically, and this was really, again, if we were in session, I think we would have given you a quarterly number of people participating. Because we weren't in session and we were offering remote, it was very hard to determine your real numbers for this last quarter. So you're not missing anything. You're 100% on point. This just tells you referrals and where they were at the end of the year. So one's a quarterly, and then one's the entire at a glance, but it's not your enrollment.
I would be curious to know, and I don't know if it's possible, as you just stated, with being remote and so forth, what Nottingham has for students enrolled. I don't know if anyone else is curious about their enrollment, or if we could get a sense of when we might know that.
How do I word this? I think I gave you a plan, not in this packet, just to say what we wanted to do to make sure it was safe and how to move forward, and what we were going to do it step by step to reopen and mitigate any risks.
Mm-hmm.
And what we needed to do was just to be able to let parents know this is the official plan. And then at that point, we would be able to give you a little bit better of an answer. But I could give you a really pretty close estimate tomorrow. I could have Jill email that out to the 2 boards to kind of give you an estimate. But until we get it truly finalized, what we're moving forward with, it's kind of hard for some parents to commit. And then the other aspect of that is, if we have to go remote at some point again due to school closures or shutdowns by governor, that number is going to vary again, because while I believe we should continue to give some of those remote services to those parents, whether they're identified or not. Identified, we're definitely going to do it. But because we're building it for identified students, we will have some of those materials just like we did last time. I feel like, and this is just me, and I know you as a board, you felt the same way last year. I believe that if we are already creating it, we should continue to provide it to the tuition students at no cost, because it only benefits us in the long run, because they're constantly getting exposure. And then if they come back, if we're able to reopen in spring or whatever else, and they come back, they have constant communication through Seesaw and anything else with our preschool teachers. That's just my belief, and I think we should make that decision when we get closer, or if it occurs. But that would be my recommendation, is to make sure that we keep our non-special ed students engaged to the best of our ability, just like we would with any other student.
Okay. Are the Nottingham and Northwood boards interested in receiving an email regarding estimated enrollment?
Sure.
Yes, I can get that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep.
Hey,
Any other
Sue,
questions on
if
this
I could
item?
just make a comment, Nottingham Northwood boards, you received an email from me about potentially a preschool committee meeting. So if you could just respond as you get then that would be helpful. Thanks.
Thank you, Brian. Yeah, I think that had the attachments. There were 2 things sent, and so it's around the reopening and the work that's been done on that, and if you want to meet to discuss that. Okay, so are we okay with this report? Any other questions? All right, moving on. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
We're moving on to committee reports. And we have the management committee update. And then other committee reports. I don't know if there are any other committees that have been meeting. Okay. On the management committee, I think anyone can chime in around. They've been management committee was doing work on the job descriptions that were a little bit out of date, and they had met and talked with Mr. Rooning and gone through, I'd say 2, 3, maybe 4 of them, and made some changes. And then we were going to get those back and look at how they, you know, laid out at that point, and then move on to the next ones. Is that accurate, do you think, for the team that were on the phone with that, on the call for that? I think we had Kelly and Debbie, and I think Brian, were you there for that one? Yeah. Any other? So we're kind of in limbo on that right now.
I think that it may be wise at this point to, since we're hiring a new superintendent, to let that person sort of, I think she wanted to really get to understand what was going on, the SAU, the first 90 days or something. That's what I remember her saying. I think it may be good for her to.
Deb?
Yeah.
So we're kind of getting a little ahead of.
Oh, okay.
But I think that one thing that would be important would be to, you know, maybe at least apply some of the information that we currently have to those. But yeah, so the management committee can continue to work on that at the board's pleasure and see how that plays out.
Yeah, if I could just chime in, just kind of thinking logistically, it probably is a really good idea to have those as accurate as we can to
Right.
go forward from. So for what we're doing right now, you know, what we're doing in August for the job descriptions, that would be, I think, a benefit to whoever would be looking at them from here on out. So.
Okay. All right. And then we will have a contract to propose in non-public to the board, and we'll discuss that in non-public. So, and no other committees have met, right? Okay. And I don't know for future meeting agenda items, what it is that you, what things you'd like to have on your next agenda.
Maybe a report from the new superintendent. Just, that's what I'd like to see.
Okay. All right. So we'll do that. And
I would think it would be nice to have a status report on the opening of school at each of the schools.
I think you would get that at the local board, Ms. Brosnan. I
Okay.
think we could do it now, but I do think each one's going to have a little bit of a different opening and start date. So it might be easier to cover that at each local board.
In terms of talking about goals as well, that might be something else that we all talk about collaboratively. And I'm wondering if maybe, I think we know we have some goals around the business department. I don't know what other thoughts the board has, but maybe locally talk about that a little bit, and then we can come back in September. And
as far as, are you talking about possibly posting a position for a full-time business administrator? Is that what you're talking about?
no, I'm just talking about goals, board and board goals. You know, we had some goals after we got our financial reports. We'd like to see some procedural documentation in our business office. That would be one goal. So just goals at the SAU level in general. Okay, so maybe, are there any thoughts on that at all, or? Okay. All right, we do have the goals that we had worked on, and I think that those are a decent enough framework to start with.
That was what I was going to just say, Sue, is maybe we could just start with what we've already done,
Yeah,
to sort of maybe touch them up.
yeah. Okay. All right. We will do that. Okay. So I'm thinking at this point, Mr. Byrne, did you have anything that you needed to go into non-public regarding?
I do not at this point.
Level?
Nope,
Okay.
not at my level. Nope, not at the SAU level, I should say. Nope.
Okay. I'd like to propose to the board that we go into non-public and that we have Mr. Byrne wait in the waiting room. And then after we kind of finish our conversation there, we could have him come back in if he's willing to do that.
I can wait in the waiting room. Is there a reason you want me back in after? I can wait in the waiting room, no problem.
I'm thinking the reason would be after the discussion, maybe to just let you know.
Okay, yeah, no, that makes sense. I just wanted to make sure if I knew I was gonna go grab a drink of water and take a bio break. I just didn't know how long I had.
I think there's plenty of time for that.
Okay, so if it would be possible, and this is just a preference so that I don't have to sit and look at a blank screen, if someone wants just to text me when you are coming back out, I will come running back downstairs.
Okay.
Yeah, I can do that.
Have, his number to text.
I do. I can do that.
So Brian will do that.
Okay.
Sure.
That way we're not tying you up, okay?
Okay. No, I don't mean tying. I'm not worried
No, I
about
know,
that.
right?
I didn't want to just sit at the computer and hover.
I don't blame
So,
you.
who would like to be the almighty powerful host? The wizard behind the curtain. Who's Kelly?
That
Gordon.
seems like
Okay.
Kelly.
Yeah, she's got it. You are now the host, Kelly. You can throw me to the waiting room.
And we're going to take off the recording.
Yep, I'm pausing it right now.
Okay.
Oh, well, actually, I can't pause it until you vote to go into non-public. You got to do the roll call, and then I'll pause it.
Okay, so we would be looking for a motion to go into RSA 91A32A, B, and C.
So moved.
I'll
Second.
Second.
Okay, so I've got Christine, I think. I was looking down. And did I hear Kathy?
Yes.
Okay. All right, we're gonna roll call in. Brian,
Yes.
Stephanie,
Yes.
Shirley,
Yes.
Jessica,
Yes.
Christine,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
me, yes, Roz,
Yes.
Erica,
Yes.
and Debbie. Debbie?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
All right, Nate, I'm going to put you in the waiting room.
Okay, I'm going to pause the video. Thank you.